Hi there, and welcome to this episode of Mining the Comments, in which we are going to look at a question that I had a hard time answering. It was the question of why is it that before I had insomnia, if I exercised, I know that I slept easier, and why isn't that happening now? I hope this will be intriguing, interesting, and helpful to you. Let's dive into it. All right, so yeah, welcome to Mind in the Comments, and as I said in the intro, this can sound like a sort of a basic question, but I kind of struggled with answering it. It was in a drop-in class. We were there was quite a bunch of us in this call and in our immunity program, and one member said that, hey, I used to exercise quite a lot. He said, like, I've started exercising a bit, but I'm not exercising as much as I did before I had insomnia. But when I did, I noted that when I exercised, quite intensively during the day, I used to sleep like easier, and I fell asleep faster, etc. And he was like, was that because like I had more sleep drive, or why was that? And I, as I was answering this question, I felt I was kind of like I wasn't giving a clear answer. There was something missing. Like I was like, no, sleep drive isn't increased by exercise. But then I was like, but I personally have experienced how kind of if I'm tired, sleep happens easier. So I was like, how can I even explain that? So anyway, that led me to like, contemplating and pondering this. And quite quickly, I was like, of course, this is how we can explain this. So that's a little backdrop there, but again, what was told to me was like I used to sleep better when I exercised during the day, and then this question: does exercise increase sleep drive? Both very common ones. So to answer this in a meaningful way, we need to quickly review one of our basic models, which is the gas and brake model. And so, if you imagine a car, it has like two pedals, right? A gas pedal and a brake pedal. And gas makes the car move, and the brake pedal makes it stop, right? And our sleep system is quite simple like this. There's the gas, which is the sleep drive, which is kind of how much our body needs to sleep at any given point. And then there's brake, which is the hyperarousal, which is like when it's unsafe to sleep. It is kind of the safety brake in our sleep system, right? Now, the only thing that can actually produce this sleep drive is wakefulness. The longer we're awake, the more sleep drive is built up, right? And the only thing, uh, you know, in the universe that does this is just staying awake. Staying awake itself is the only thing we need to have a sleep drive, and nothing else really creates sleep drive. So just at this point, we can already answer the question of does exercise increase sleep drive? It does not. Only wakefulness does that. Now, one more comment on the break. When we're about to fall asleep and we remember, like, oh no, I left the oven on, then we go into this hyperarousal mode. Like the brain's like, this is dangerous. You cannot sleep now. You gotta check the oven, right? But there's also a sort of a baseline level of arousal that we all have during the day. We don't walk around typically feeling like just really sluggish and tired. Like our body produces some level of, let's say adrenaline or cortisol or whatever alerting hormones are circulating in our body to keep us, attentive, to make us pay attention to what's happening and have some focus, right? We all have a certain level of arousal. When we're scared, we have a panic attack, we have hyper arousal. That arousal level is really high. It's a safety thing. Our brain's like, oh, you got to really pay attention now. When we are hypo aroused, that's when we're like depressed. We feel like, I don't want to do anything, nothing has a point. Then I hyper arousal levels are kind of lower than typical. So yeah, what I want to illustrate here is that there's not only like hyper arousal, which we talk so much about. There's also kind of like, arousal and hypoarousal. Arousal can exist in various degrees. So, and of course, all this is going to go to answer your question. Now, we've already said that only wakefulness builds sleep drive, but then comes the question. So, how come, with this in mind, if exercise doesn't affect our sleep drive, how come many of us humans have experienced that we do sleep longer, easier, deeper after exercise? And not only actually after like physical exercise, but if we have like had a big exam or we studied a lot and we're like, we exercised our brain, etc. Well, the way I see this now is that exercise does not affect the gas, but it can impact the brake. Think about it this way: arousal requires energy, for our body to like produce some level of cortisol or adrenaline or whatever it is to keep us at a certain level of arousal. It requires energy. Like we're spending more energy when we are kind of like more active than when we're not. So just maintaining our body, our brain, our being in a state of arousal, it requires some energy, right? And when we have, spent a lot of energy, and I'm not talking about kind of like energy as in kind of the fuzzy, like, how's your energy today, that sense, but more in like amounts of like, calories, like we burned a lot of calories some way, then there may not be as much energies and as much calories available to produce that level of arousal. So our arousal is naturally on the lower end, right? And this is where the same amount of sleep drive that before maybe was not producing led to sleep can now actually start to produce sleep because the arousal levels are a little lower, right? So now the same amount of sleep drive can now translate into sleep a bit easier because the arousal levels are lower. And this is how I contextualize. This is how I see that yes, sleep can happen a bit easier when we have spent energy because there's less energy available to produce arousal. And so this is kind of my answer. Now, before we let this go, like I think everything we talked about so far is really outside the context of insomnia. This explains why somebody says like, "Hey, before I had insomnia, I used to exercise and I fell asleep easier, etc." But when we are in a state of hyper arousal, when we're scared and frazzled, like you know, our arousal no longer is really affected by kind of like these really like minor things, which is like there's a little bit less energy for arousal. That's kind of minor in comparison to the fear that lifts pushes our arousal levels to like really high levels. Not only that, and this is why like exercise in the context of insomnia, it really doesn't matter. And not only that, if somebody has this idea that, oh, I need to exercise so I feel really tired and exhausted, so I sleep, then guess what? This just becomes a sleep effort. This becomes like this attempt to try to force us sleep. And when we're in this mindset of like, I gotta do this to sleep, I gotta do this to sleep, I gotta exercise to sleep, then our arousal levels go up. So then, we still have trouble sleeping, of course. So again, the intent of this mine in the comments was to clarify this so there's less mystery and more understanding, which always is really, really helpful. We'll conclude there. Hope this made sense to you and look forward to having you back real soon. Bye for now. They say that the best things in life are free. And I truly hope that this free video helps you rediscover something else that is free, which is peaceful sleep. If you do find our content here helpful, then please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share it with people because the more views we get, the more people we reach, the more chances of changing lives we have. The thing is, leaving insomnia for good is actually so, so simple. You can and will rediscover a beautiful life at the end of this sleepless tunnel. So, yes, please share it with people, hit the subscribe button, and you will be a big part of leading the change that we so want to see in the sleep universe. Thank you.